that out for me, because I need you guys to help me out here. So you have your tablet with you. If you can take that out and open up OneNote and open our shared notebook. Because OneNote is using an absurd amount of my hard drive space, because it's backing up all of your files that are in your shared notebooks also on my machine. So I have like hundreds of shared notebooks that are all backed up on my machine, which is an issue. So, Alexandra, I'm going to look at yours just as an example to everyone else. So like we have, Alexandra, you have all these, you have these two tabs here, right? And you have all of this stuff in your homework section. So any of these things that have been completed, I'd like you to move into the non-shared version of your OneNote notebook. So like inside the shared version, there's the stuff that I can see and the stuff that I can't see, right? You guys know what I mean? Up here at the top, there's like some other tabs other than these ones that would, other than the homework tab up here, right? You guys know what I mean? So what I'd want you to do is, like, if you go to the pages here on the side and you hold down the control button or the shift button even, you can take like the whole thing that's been graded. See how they're all highlighted? So I just held down the shift button and I clicked the first one and then the last one. And then if you right click here and just hit cut, you're going to cut all those pages and then just move to the different section, right click in the pages and then select paste, and you'll move everything out of the shared part into your only view, because I want you to hang on to these assignments. There's no reason to delete them, right? It's just that once I've graded them, I'd like you to kind of get in the habit of moving them back into your own little private section. So it frees up some space on my machine, because I'm running into situations where I can't even record a lesson from a video before my computer's like crashing and running out of hard drive space because there's so much being eaten up by OneNote. So take a few minutes here and kind of get that straightened out. If you have questions for me about what's going on, or if you did something right, I'd be happy to look at your machine and let you know. And it doesn't even really matter to me where you move this stuff out of it. You could move it into the offline version even if you wanted to. That's fine with me too. I just need you to like get rid of some of all these pages in our notebook so that my computer actually has some hard drive space. I'm going to be doing this in all my classes for the next day or two while we're kind of getting things cleaned up. Because it's literally like 30, 40 gigs of space. If you're not sure what to do, raise your hand. We can do it again. I'm happy to explain again. Sure. So like here's your shared notebook, right? Yeah. And there's like, you have your homework tab up here. But then you have another section of this that's like the stuff that like is the student only section, right? So what I want you to do is to just take all these things that are in the homework tab in that shared section and move them into the student only section. So the easiest way to do that, you just click the first thing on your page, hold down the shift button, and then click the last thing on your page and it highlights everything for you all at once. See, all the pages are highlighted now? If I right click in there, I can pick the cut option and it'll cut all those pages, and then I'll just move into the student only section, and over in this pages side, I'll just right click and select paste, and it'll move all those pages into that section where it's no longer going to be section I can view. You still need to do your new assignments in there, but once they've been graded, we're going to move them into the student only section. Does that make sense, Elizabeth? Yeah. Okay. And again, if you think you've done it and you want me to check, I'm happy to check. Or if you're not sure what to do and you need some like help with me actually moving the things for you, I'm fine to do that also. But if we can take a few moments right now and work on that, I'll sync my notebook here a couple of times to see if, if you think you've done it correctly. When I sync, everything should be kind of gone. Because right now, everybody should have an empty homework notebook. Because everything, I've graded the stuff that you've done everything you've done up into this point. So that could be empty. So I'll sync again here and see what's going on. See if that has made any difference. But that's what we're going to do here to start, is just kind of get this a little house cleaning on my end. I didn't foresee when I set this up how big of a resource hog this was going to be, but at this point in the semester, with still like a whole rest of the school year to go, and I'm already having these, this resource issue, like I need to do something about it now without overhauling the whole system of the way we're doing things. And this seems like a reasonable modification that'll make, is not too much for you guys, and it should free up a good amount of space for me to be able to get through a day of making recordings without having to run into like clearing out my OneNote and then having to wait for it, and just like, can I make this long enough of a recording until it fills back up and I run out? It just becomes this like shell game that's not a lot of fun. So Elizabeth, I'm going to go and look at yours real quick here. Okay, so you still are in the process of working. Has anybody think they figured this out? Isabella? Let's look at yours and see if this has worked. I think this should work. Yes. So Isabella, yours looks good. So if we look at Isabella's here, the whole thing is empty, right? She's moved everything out of here and put it somewhere else, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I'm hoping. And Enzo, you said you think you got this done correctly as well. So, well, it still says that we're doing some syncing thing. I'm still seeing a bunch of stuff in your sections. But it's possible that, we're just waiting on that stuff to go through. Who else thinks they've done this correctly? Raylan, let's take a look at yours. Again, we're still syncing, so you very well could have done this correctly. It's still showing here. Everything's still there, but let's try. Oh, there it goes. See, the sync caught up on it. And you are empty, so that's great. Tyler, where you had your hand up also? Yeah. Okay. So these people that I've been kind of pointing out that have kind of gotten things figured out, if you are still kind of struggling through this and you want some extra help from one of your classmates, these are all good people to talk to. So Tyler, looks like you've cleared everything out other than the active chapter 4, which is fine. And when you finish chapter 4, I assume you'll move that as your plan. Okay. Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay. So as we're kind of going here, see, and then there's the sync saying that Tyler doesn't have anything in here. So it's just kind of all catching up right now, which is great. That's fine. That's what we're hoping things happen, is that, we're able to kind of catch up and clear up some space and, free up some resources on my end so that I'm not running into like all this functionality issues. Now I'm going to leave the content library full, so I'm never going to move anything from there, because I assume at points, whether it's preparing for a final exam or if you're working with a tutor on previous things that we've done, that you probably still want access to the old notes or the old assignments and things like that. So I'm not going to mess with that on my end, because it feels like that's a resource that you want to have. we'll see if that runs into an issue. If it becomes a big issue, I can always like export all those files as PDFs and put them on PowerSchool or something. But I'm hoping that just on your end, this all kind of clears up enough space for me to make, to free up a lot of the issues that I've been having. As I know it's convenient to have it all on OneNote, and I don't want to mess with the content library if I don't have to. Okay. Is anybody still kind of working on getting their things moved? You are, Nick?
Yeah.
Okay. No worries. Again, I don't want to start doing anything new until we've had a chance to do this, because this is, in a way, it's like not academically important, but like in my ability to do my job, it's kind of important, because I need the space in the computer to be able to like record these lessons and have things run smoothly for me. And it's taken me a while to kind of figure out where all these resources are getting used, and like, okay, so I cleared out all the backups, but as soon as I open OneNote and I do a sync or whatever, all the backup files come flooding back in and fill up all my space again. So it's like just kind of a shell game of, okay, how long can I go before having to sync? And it's just not, I've gotten sick of it. And it's getting worse as you guys are adding more and more files, which is fine. That's exactly what I asked you to do. I just didn't foresee OneNote needing to house all of these backup files on my computer physically. Maybe I should have, but
showing up on my OneNote for some reason. So
okay.
It's in the very book is missing, and I don't know.
Okay.
Like if it was like a sync error or something, but it's not on my. Like you left a note that says that there's no work there, and I don't see anything, but I know I did it.
Okay.
I don't know.
So can you come back by during community time or something? We can take a look at your OneNote and see if we can figure out what's going on, or if you'd like an extension, you can like. If you figure out, find where it is, or if you want to redo it, that's fine.
I just thought I should.
I appreciate you coming and talking to me, and that's fine. Like I get that, technology issues happen, and this is new kind of for everybody this year, so like it's no big deal. Okay, thank you.
I can't do community time though, because Patel requires email for 24 hours.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
It's.
Well, if you decide you want to do that, let me know and I'll send something, and we can do it later this week or whatever. You're welcome. Hi, Walter.
Do I have to copy paste these all like one by one, or can I do it?
So you can do a couple of things. So if we go to the first one, and you hold Shift, and you click the last one, it highlights all of them, and then you can take the whole, the whole bunch of them, cut them all. And go back into this is the private one, right? Oh no, this is that's your section. So into, where do we go? We'll just take it back to my notebook or something. And we'll just make a section called algebra here. Because this looks like algebra homework anyways. Just paste all those guys in. Boom, 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 boom. And you can go back in, and if you wanted to like take this whole tab, you should be able to, I guess not, you'll have to take it section by section. So again, you can go first and last, and then kind of do the same thing. No problem. Much faster than doing them one at a time, right? Okay. So now that we've done this, I'm going to take some questions from the homework from last week. So we did I think there were 3 homework assignments that I was looking to check over the weekend. So homework 1, 2, and 3 from chapter 4. And we're going to take some time here. I'll do some questions from those. And then we'll talk about the plan for our rest of the time today in class. Okay? So I'm going to go and make a fresh page in the content library here. And if you want to take a minute and look at your, the homeworks 1, 2, or 3, wherever you have them, whether they're in a notebook or on your OneNote or kind of wherever you want to be looking at or wherever you've done them. But take a cruise through there and see if there are things that you weren't sure what to do with, or you're not sure you did it correctly, or you couldn't figure it out, or anything like that. We'll take some time here to kind of refresh how we do some of these things, because I know that over the weekend sometimes the homework kind of drifts on us, right? I know it does with me. If you go away from something for a little while, sometimes you forget what to do or how to do it. And that's okay. That's part of the point of doing, taking some questions now. Isabella? Homework 2, number 19? Sure. So let's use some of in addition to the techniques that we kind of talked about last week. So if I look at this and I look at these coefficients, they're all rather large, right? 15, 12, 72. Do you notice anything in common between those 3 coefficients? They're all divisible by 3. So there's a neat little check for only divisibility by 3. But if you take the digits and you add them up together, if that number is also divisible by 3, then that number is divisible by 3. For example, 15, the digits 1 and 5, if I add them together, gives me 6. I know 6 is divisible by 3, so 15 should also be divisible by 3. Now, 15 and 12, it's pretty easy to see that those are divisible by 3. 72, maybe not so obvious. But 7 plus 2 is 9, and 9 is certainly divisible by 3. So that's a trick. That only works for 3s, but it's a good trick to kind of have in mind. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out a greatest common factor. Okay with that, Isabella? And now this isn't a necessary step, but it makes life a lot easier if the numbers just get a little bit smaller, right? It makes that search space of finding the 2 numbers that multiply to give us and add to give us much smaller. And I'm about doing that kind of work, right? So we want 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 120, and then add to give negative 4. Okay, well, let's start our list. So multiplies and then adds to. And I'll just kind of go and do this, but I'm going to kind of start in the middle here, because I know, like adding to give us 4, one has to be positive, or negative 4. One has to be positive, one has to be negative. And they have to be pretty close together, right? So I know that 120 isn't a perfect square. There's not something squared that gives me 120, because I know that 11 is 121 and 10 is 100. 120 is in between that, but there's not going to be a perfect square there. But I do know that like negative 12 and positive 10 are as close together as I'm going to get like 2 actual factors. but those don't actually work because they give us -2, not +2. Or, sorry, negative, they don't give us -4. And if I reverse the sign, still no luck. So now let's try, so 9 doesn't go into 120. 8, does that go in there? Yes. 8 and 15, right? Or -8 and +15. Neither one of those work. And at this point, I know that there's not going to be a pair of numbers that work for this, right? Because here we had 2 or -2. And the next two numbers closest together, we're getting 7 or -7. There's not going to be a way for me to get two numbers that are closer together than, or another pair of numbers in between, like -12 and 10 and -15 and 8. Now I could keep going and do this exhaustive search and like try every possible combination, but at this point I'm quite certain that this isn't going to work. Isabella, do you understand the reasoning there? Okay. Is anybody confused on my reasoning, how I know that this is just, there's not going to be two integers that do this?
I have like no question.
Okay.
I just like left it. I didn't like divide it.
You did, okay, so you didn't take out the factor of 3,
Yeah.
and that's okay. You'll get the same result,
Okay.
even if you don't do that in the beginning, although it's a good thing to check, especially when the numbers are kind of big, because it makes life much easier when the numbers get smaller. But you're not like going to be penalized
Okay.
for not doing that. It's still, you'll end up getting to the same point. It'll just be a little bit more tedious because the numbers get less convenient. You know what I mean? So that's a good question. So here there's just going to be, we're just going to say this is not factorable because there's not two such numbers. Now, I want to be clear when I say this. There are two numbers, but they're not whole numbers. And the method that we're working on right now is really relying on us being able to find two whole numbers. But there are two numbers that do this. And eventually we are going to talk about how to find the two numbers that do this, but not right now. Okay? Because that's a wholly different process that's not this. Is that okay with everybody? Isabella, you feel okay on this?
Yeah.
You probably were thinking, I can't figure out what the two numbers are, and that's okay. You weren't supposed to. There weren't two numbers that worked. That's okay. And that can happen, right? There's not always an answer to this question. This factoring method that we've developed is nice because it's fast, and it works a lot of the time, but it doesn't work all the time. So our next thing that we're going to worry about later this week or next is going to be, okay, like, what can we do to kind of patch over that, right? So we've seen that this method doesn't work all the time. So what do we do when it doesn't work? Are there other things that I can do? And we'll eventually kind of be building that out. Who else has questions that you want to talk about? Happy to do more. Again, I think this time that we spend going over the homework, I think is as important as the time you spend doing the homework, right? This is where we really get a chance to get a feel for whether we know how to do this or not. And we get a little bit of deeper understanding out of this. So if there's anything that you saw that you want to talk about, or even just hear answers to, or see me do, or any of these sorts of things, this is a great time to take advantage of that.
Mr. Kulik,
Yes.
I'm in the Zoom.
Yep. Hi, Joe.
Hey, could you do number 13 on homework 2, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem. 13 on homework 2. Okay. So here we're going to look for the two numbers that multiply to give us -20. That's 1 times -20. And add to give us -1. Okay. So we'll start by making our list. So like this is going to be a relatively short list. So I'll just kind of start at the beginning. So 3 doesn't go into 20, but 4 does. And then the next number is 5, but I already have 5 on my list right here, so I don't have to worry about that. So we're done. That's the whole list. That gives us 19, negative 19, 8, negative 8, positive 1. Negative 1 is right there. So that's the pair of numbers that we needed. And based on our shortcut that we talked about last week on Friday, since the leading coefficient is 1, I can go straight from those two answers to the factored form. I don't have to do the grouping part, unless the leading coefficient is not 1. Joe, does that do it for you?
Yep, thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Kulik,
Yes.
can I see homework 2, question 3?
Sure. Work 2, question 3. Okay. So here we don't have anything to factor. We're just practicing finding the two numbers. So we have to multiply to get 10 and add to give negative 7. So again, we always start with the multiplication problem first. So we can have, remember that 2 positives give us a positive, but multiplying 2 negatives also give us a positive. So I can do 1 and 10, or negative 1 and negative 10, and then 2 and 5, or negative 2 and negative 5. That gives us, and then 3 doesn't go into 10 or 4, or 5 does, but we already have 5 on our list here, so that's it. That adds to 11, negative 11, 7, negative 7. Those are the two numbers that we needed. Paradise, are you good with that?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Raylan? Homework 3, number 6. Certainly. Okay. So first thing I would do is check to see if there's a greatest common factor. So the only factors of 10 are 2, 5, and 10. None of those are going to go into 89 because 89 is odd, so 2 doesn't go in. And then it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, so 5 doesn't go in. And it doesn't end in a 0, so 10 can't go in. So there's no greatest common factor here. So this is as easy as it's going to get. So it needs to multiply to give us 10 times negative 9. That's negative 90. And add to give us positive 89. So we'll start with the multiplication problem first. So negative 90, I could have 1 and negative 90, or negative 1 and positive 90. And that's the pair that I need. Those will add to give me 89. So far, so good. Okay. So since the leading coefficient is not 1, I have to do that factor by grouping stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my problem so that I write it as negative 1x plus 89, or plus 90 instead of the 89. And it doesn't matter whether I put the negative 1 first or the positive 90 first. You'll get the same answer. And in the end, the work in between will be a little different, but it doesn't matter. So I'll make my two groups. From the first group, my greatest common factor is just x. That's the only thing in common. So if I take those out, I'm going to have 10x minus 1. In the second group, my greatest common factor is positive 9. When I take that out, I also have 10x minus 1. Of course. And then if I look at each one of these two and look for something in common between both of them, I see that it's 10x minus 1 is in both of them. So when I factor that out, the only stuff left would be x plus 9. And this is my final answer. Is that okay, Roland? Good. And this is the step that we can shortcut through if the leading coefficient is 1, if that value for A is 1. That's the work that we can avoid having to do. When a leading coefficient isn't 1, that's when we're kind of stuck having to do that factoring step, as there's not a good way to get around it.
Mr. Cooler, can I see homework 3, question 7?
Sure. So question 7, we notice that the leading coefficient isn't 1, and there's no greatest common factor I can take out. The only divisors of 9 are 3 and 9, and neither 3 nor 9 goes into 25. But notice that the B coefficient is 0, right? This tells us that there's a shortcut here, or possibly a shortcut here. So notice that this is in the form of something squared minus something squared. So in this case, D would be 3x, because 3x times 3x is 9x squared. And E would be 5, because 5 squared is 25. Paradise, are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So I know that one of the shortcuts we had was that when I had something in this form of d squared minus e squared, it just factors to d minus e times d plus e. So we have our answer there, 3x minus 5 times 3x plus 5. And we got away with not having to go through the factor by grouping. Now, if you didn't notice that, could have you still done this by factoring by grouping? Absolutely. So would have multiplied to give us, 9 times, I think that's negative 175. And that's positive 15 and negative. No, I'm sorry, that's 25. And it adds to give us 0. That would have been the two numbers that you would have needed. And you could have done the grouping like we did in the previous problem. But I think that this is considerably quicker. And that's a really pretty useful formula, at least as far as factoring goes. Is that okay, Paradise?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Okay. Anyone else with questions from the homework? Happy to do more if we still have more. Walter. Sure. Homework 2, number 18. Okay. So this is good because it's kind of the same situation that we just ran into. So notice here that there is no b coefficient. Since there's no regular x, we just have x squared and then a constant. You see that? So, and then I noticed that, or what I'm going to check for is, can 4x squared minus 1 be thought of as something squared minus something else squared? Well, 4x squared is 2x times 2x, right? And 1 is 1 times 1. So yes, this can be written as something squared minus something squared. And so just like before, I can write it then as 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 1. And we're done. So again, the shortcuts, super helpful, right? They really speed things up when you're able to notice that you can use them and use them effectively. And I certainly want you to be able to do that. And in fact, what we're going to do next is do some practice on trying to do these things quickly. Is everybody good with this plan? Okay. So if you guys can clear your desks, other than something to write with, we're going to do some timed practice on some of these things, just to kind of work on going a little bit faster and doing some of these things in our head. Actually, I guess for the first round, I'll let you use a calculator for the first sheet. We're going to do 3 of these practices, 3 of these little time practices here, just to work on these factoring skills, using these shortcuts, and getting used to doing them, kind of quickly, right? Is everybody okay with that plan? So we're going to, when we're done with these, we'll go through and read through the answers, and I'll ask you to mark your stuff right or wrong. There's no grade attached to this, but I really want to just use this as a measuring stick to figure out, for me, how much more practice do we need to do with this. We've done a couple of assignments on it, but that doesn't mean a whole lot, right? We can do lots of assignments, and it just might not be, we might not have it yet, and that's okay. Kate, will you do me a favor? Will you pass one of these out to everyone, but will you put it facing down on their desk? So leave these facing down until I tell you to flip them over. Again, there's going to be a time component to this. Not that it matters, you go and do it as what you're able to do. But we want to start practicing on doing these things quickly. And how do you get quick at doing something? Well, you have to practice, and that's all we're trying to do right now. And my group here at home, I'm converting this to a PDF right now. I'm going to dump it in the content library here in a moment so that you guys can participate as well. I'm going to do that so that we can't see it until I'm ready. Nope, that just happened. Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. Do you guys want to turn the lights on, or can you see well enough? You're okay? Okay. I'm fine leaving them off as well. That's not a big deal to me. I just thought I'd ask because it's dark. But if you guys can see and with your young eyes, that's perfectly fine. So just to talk about what you're going to see here, when you flip this sheet over, don't do it yet, you're going to see there's going to be 10 problems that are formatted like multiplies to give you and adds to give you. So you're just looking for the two numbers on this sheet. There's no factoring to do. It's just practicing finding these two numbers. I'm basically going to give, there's 10 questions on there. It's in 2 columns or whatever. But I'm going to give you basically like 15 seconds per question. So that's 150 seconds, which comes out to be 2.5 minutes to try to do this. Do as much as you can in the time. If you don't finish, that's okay. If you do things incorrectly, that's okay. We'll go through the answers when we're done, and I'll get a little ask for like, okay, who got, at least one of them, at least 2 of them, and we'll just kind of do a show of hands to give me an idea of like where we're at, right? Because I don't want to sit here and do a graded assignment on something that should just be practice, but I also want to know like how good are we at this and what do we still need to work on. So this one, we're going to do 3 of these little practices today. This one is just, like find the 2 numbers. The next one will give also factoring with a little, add a little bit more time per question. And then the third one will take a little bit of time back and it's still factoring. Okay? All the factoring questions I'll ask you to do on the other 2 worksheets are all shortcut problems. They're ones that you could do with the shortcuts. Is everybody okay with this plan? We're just going to do a little bit of time practice to work on getting a little bit better at doing this, okay? So those of you guys at home, if you check the content library, you might need to sync, but you'll see time factoring practice 1 in the content library. If you're having computer problems or whatever, and you don't get it ready at the time when I start the time, that's okay. Just you have your cell phone, time yourself. It's 2.5 minutes. Just be honest at where you're at. There's no penalty for not finishing or doing something wrong. Like, it's just practice. Okay? All right. On your marks, get set, flip. It's so much fun. That's halfway. Ten seconds. And pencils down. Woo! Okay. So we're not, at this point, I just want to get a feel for like the speed in which we're working without the right and wrongness. So we're just going to do quick show of hands of like was able to finish X number of problems, okay? So finished at least one. Okay, at least two, at least three. Okay, at least four. Okay, 5, 6, okay, 7. Okay, so Connor, you got apparently the most done with at least 7 of them. Okay, so that's important information for me. So we'll give more time on the next sheet, more than maybe I had planned on. And that's okay that we're still kind of getting used to doing this and doing it quickly. Again, I'm not going to ever give you something where it's like, hey, I need you to do like, here's something, do it in 5 minutes. Like it'll be part of something we can do on a test. And there's obviously like a time component to a test, right? Like we don't have the entire period to work on something. But I'm not going to give you like, hey, you have 5 minutes to do these problems, like kind of a test, okay? But it is something that when we're able to do this quickly and accurately, it makes life much, much easier as we go further down. Now, I know that this is the first time some of us are doing this, so it's okay if we weren't tremendously successful this first time through. That's not a big deal. It's someplace to build on, and this is mostly just for me to figure out, okay, how much more practice do we need, and what kind of practice do we still need, right? And that's fine. Like it just, I'm not in a rush to kind of move on to something else. I think this is, again, as I said before, like I think the most important skill we work on in chapter 1. So I want to make sure that we're able to do this. So I need like an honest, like assessment of where we're at, right? And it's a low stakes assessment, right? We're just practicing some stuff. Anyways, let's go through and do the right and wrong part. Okay? So the first one would be you have practice too? Gosh darn it. That's my fault for not looking what I handed Kate. I just assumed that I was in the same order that I got back. Well, no wonder everybody was flustered. Because that wasn't what I told you, right? I told you were going to get just as to multiply and give us, and you got something different. Nobody said anything. Come on, guys. My goodness. Okay, that's fine. Well, we'll look at sheet 2 then. And I made a mess out of that. Okay, so this is what you're looking at then. Okay. We're off to a great start today. That's my fault. It's not your fault. Although I wish somebody would have said something, been like, hey, I don't think you gave us the right sheet. But that's okay. It's okay. Again, like if you think I'm making a mistake, you can say something. Like, I make mistakes. You've seen enough of my lectures to know that I do this kind of on a regular basis. All right, well, let's go through this. So what do we have? X plus 3 and x plus 6. X minus 6, x minus 4. X plus 8, x minus 5. X minus 3, x plus 2. X minus 8, x minus 8. X plus 9, x minus 7. X minus 9, x plus 9. X minus 7, x plus 7. And then x minus 5, x minus 1. That's me doing those in real time. Right? Like, not that I expect you to be at that level. Again, like I've been a math teacher for like 15 years. So like I've had so much practice at doing this kind of stuff. But like, you know, like it's so helpful when doing, you know, working in this kind of algebra course that you're able to perform these kind of calculations relatively quickly and accurately. Like it makes everything easier going forward if we're able to do this. Okay. So again, no judgment. Oh, there was one more at the end. My goodness gracious. X plus 1, X plus 1. No judgments. We're just going to get an accuracy kind of idea here for me. Again, this is just for me to know what to do next. There's no penalty for right and wrong. It's just for me to get an idea of like where we're at so I can meet you guys where you are and get you the practice we need and the feedback we need to move forward and get better at this sort of thing. Okay? Everybody's okay? Okay. So, show of hands, at least one correct? Okay. At least two? Okay. At least three? Okay. 4? Okay. 5? 6? 7? 8? No. You got them all? Oh, excellent. So you feel very well prepared. Good. That's great. Now that I certainly is not the expectation that was everyone's Algebra 1 experience, right? So many of us think back and we probably never did this in our Algebra 1 class, and that's okay too. It's all different, you know, people are going to have different experiences. That's fantastic that, Connor, that you feel very comfortable here. That's, you know, you're off, you know, you have a sizable head start, which is fantastic. It's a nice feeling. Not the expectation that that's where we're at. So, again, this is me just kind of anecdotally without actually looking at anything. Of the ones that we were able to finish, it seems like for the most part we did things correctly. Is that a fair place to be at? That if you got, you know, you finished 6 of them, you got like 5 right or something? Is that kind of, again, without actually recording what people did, that seemed to be kind of in the neighborhood of where we were working? So that's good, right? So it feels like maybe we have a decent idea of how to do this, and it's just getting a little bit more practice to get fast is where we're at. Is that now not it? And again, if you're not at that place, that's okay. If you're still on I need to figure out how to do this point, like, that's okay. Let me know, and we can do some more, you know, like individual stuff to kind of get you up to speed with wherever you're at. But if it's one of these like, okay, I think I know how to do this. I make mistakes every once in a while, and I'm not super fast at it, but I think I can do this. That's good. Okay. All right, let's get the one that I meant to pass out first, and we'll kind of do this in a weird order here, I guess. But whatever. So you guys can hang on to those ones that I still have, or that I just gave you. That's fine, no big deal. This one that I've given you is on your desk. Of course. Yes. Fell asleep in class. We were doing stuff. still have this upside down on your sheet, or the sheet on your new sheet on your desk. I'm gonna kind of do a little tap dance here for a minute to let our couple of students that were needed a break here to come back so we can all start at the same time, since it's a timed exercise. So take a minute, just kind of like, shake out your arms and roll your shoulders and take a couple of deep breaths and relax and check your cell phone to see if any of you had any hot date messages or whatever going on. We'll kind of reconvene here in a moment. And obviously people at home, if you did the opposite order sheets or whatnot, like do the other one now. I can't believe I managed to pass out the wrong sheet, but I did it, so you got to own that. That's on me.
Mr. Coolidge,
Yes.
you know when our test is going to be?
For this,
Yeah, on this chapter.
long time from now.
Oh, really?
Not
Oh,
this
okay.
week and not next week.
Oh, all right. Sounds
So
good.
I don't know when it's going to be for sure, but it's not not this week or next week.
All right.
Okay. We still have some more stuff to do, and that's good, right? Like no rush. Want to get good at this chapter in particular, because the next chapter after this is like the more general version of this chapter. So if we can't do this one, we're going to really have issues the next chapter. So we want to make sure it's particularly these factoring skills and the solving skills, which are these first two skills we're going to deal with in this chapter, we're able to handle effectively, because if we can't do it now, we're going to have even bigger problems next chapter where it gets a little bit more general. So that's my plan anyways. Ooh. Well, I think we need to start, even though we have somebody still out, but I'm afraid of not having time to do all three of these practices if we don't kind of get things moving. So this one, I intended on, this was supposed to be the one you get 2.5 minutes on. The other one I was going to give you more time on. The third one will be similar to the first one that we did that we'll give you more time with, but this one is 2.5 minutes again. Okay, so on your marks, get set, flip! That's halfway. Ten seconds. And time's up. Pencils down. So quick show of hands on number that or amount that we were able to finish. So at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So a little bit faster on these ones where there's a little bit less to write out, even though it's fundamentally the same problem, right? Here everything was written out for you, so you're probably able to move a little bit faster. But that's good. Let's go through and kind of get a gauge on correctness here. So let's see, -7 and 4. -2 and -10. How I had the same problem on there twice, I don't know. That's a freebie for everybody. 5 and -4. Here we have -9 and -8. Here we have +9 and -1. -6 and +3, 10 and 12, and then we have +12 and -2. Oh, did I miss one again? Do I have the same problem on there 3 times? I am a moron sometimes, guys. Goodness gracious. 12 and -2. Okay. So let's do one more. So I'll pass that out now. This is another factoring where I give you another factoring one. Similar to the first one, we're actually going to try to come up with the two factors. Let's leave it face down on our desk until I tell you to do something different. So again, we'll keep it face down until I tell you to flip. Once you flip, we'll do this. And we'll say, let's take 4 minutes on this. Let's try to give everybody a decent shot at finishing a lot of this, or at least more time than we certainly got the first time around. It seemed like the average number was maybe 5 or 6 the first time through. Here maybe we can get to 8 or 9, or 10 or something, maybe a little bit more. If anything, maybe we're feeling a little bit more warmed up after doing a couple of these, maybe the first one. The combination of getting caught off guard, getting the wrong sheet, contradicting my instructions, and then being the first one that we've tried, and maybe our brains aren't moving super fast at 8:30 in the morning. The combination of those two things probably plays a factor. So this is practice 3 for those of you guys at home that we're trying to do right now. We'll take 4 minutes to work on this. Everybody ready? Set. Begin. Little over halfway. That's basically 2.5 minutes there, just FYI. So if you're finished already, that's a good sign. Still with a minute to go. 10 more seconds. And time's up. Pencils down. Okay. So let's get some finishing info. So at least 1, at least 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So about half or more of us were able to finish the whole thing in 4 minutes, which is better than the first time around. That seems to be maybe right around that 4 or 5 minute is the speed in which we're able to work right now, which seems that's pretty reasonable given that, some of us are seeing this for the first time. Some of you were done much earlier than that, I noticed, and that's okay too. Like, as you get better at this, or if you have some experience doing this already, you're going to be able to go faster as we go. Let's do a quick accuracy count here. So we'll go through the solutions and then we'll get a count of how many we're able to do correctly here at the end, and that'll be the last thing we'll do today. So this first one is x plus 6 and x plus 6, x minus 10 and x plus 5, x plus 11, x minus 3, x plus 5, x plus 1, x minus 6, x plus 6, x minus 4, x minus 8, x plus 1, x minus 1, x minus 7, x minus 6, x minus 10, x plus 8, and x minus 2, x minus 2. It does not. So the order in which you write the two factors doesn't matter. You have to have the same two factors, but if you have which one is which, it doesn't matter. But like for number 9, like you definitely have to have a minus 10 and a plus 8. You couldn't have a minus 8 and a plus 10. But which factor comes first does not matter. Okay, so quick little count on accuracy. Able to do at least 1 correctly? Good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very good. So it seems like we made a good bit of improvement just today kind of doing this practice. Next time we meet, we'll probably do this again, at least for part of the lesson. There's no homework for you guys to work on tonight. We did all of our practice today in class. We'll do at least one more day where we do this little focus practice, and we'll probably do a little bit of something new afterwards next time. But we'll probably come back and do a little bit more of this kind of focus practice a couple more times, just so we never get too far away from this skill. But you guys did good today. I appreciate how hard we tried. Seemed like everybody made some improvement. Hopefully you feel a bit better about doing this process and have a little bit more confidence doing it. And I like the progress that we made. So good job. Those of you at home, we're done. So if you guys need to log off and do something else before your next class, you're welcome to do that.
Mr. Kohler, could you slide back up on your screen?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All of these are also in the content library. So if you want to try it again or look at the answers, they're also there.
Mr. Coolidge,
Yes.
so the only reason we were able to go so quickly for these is because there was a 1 in the coefficient before that squared, right?
Correct. Yes.
That allows us to do our shortcut.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
You're
I'll
welcome.
See you on Thursday, I think.
Yes.
All right, take care. Thank
Yep.
you.
Have a good day, Joe.
Thank you.
You're welcome. FYI, guys. I put all these practice sheets and the keys in the content library. So if you want to practice again on your own at home or whatever, they're there and available that you can go through and do a practice again. I know that some of you guys, some people have asked or told me they're meeting with tutors and looking for things to do with their tutor. This is a great thing to practice, so you have, you know, some time practices that you can do with them and go through answers and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good skill to work at in general.